Hey guys, everybody, welcome tonight to another episode of Biomassed. I believe this episode is going to be called A Wild Election Appears. And for the record, none of the hosts other than Soraya had anything to do with naming that. So tonight we have a little bit of an interesting show. If you're listening to this, you're probably listening on iTunes or you're in the show because our live stream isn't up right now, but rest assured, if you're listening to it, all is well. So we have a pretty neat little guest panel together. It kind of came together sort of out of the blue, so to speak, but we have a really nice group on tonight. So we've got Appia back for her second go around on the show. Cross, Iron Wolf Saber, and Jackal, and it looks like we got Expelled Dust back. So we have basically a really, really solid panel of vets and experienced folks, many of which are running for the CPM. Uh, and we'll be monitoring our Skype channels and tweet channels. So hopefully we'll get some questions on those. I'll be pinging guys back and forth as we do. But like always, we'll start with some intros and talk through some things. And I think some of the topics we're going to talk through tonight are a little bit relevant in terms of like what kind of events that CCP could do for the community of Dust, and a little bit about the current event that's going on, which is kind of interesting. You get to name your own rifle, that kind of jazz, but it does encourage a fair amount of proto stomping. Not the really anything that CCP ever does hasn't encouraged proto stomping. So we'll kind of work with that, and then at some point we're all going to share who we think everybody else's theme music should be, since the pre-show, which none of you normally get to hear, is filled with some pretty interesting jabs back and forth about who should get whose theme music. I know that means nothing to most of you that are listening to this on iTunes, but I can assure you it was quite funny for the 5 minutes before we started recording, and it'll probably flop horribly when we actually try to talk about it on the show. So with that, we'll start with introductions. And for the record, Soraya Zell has changed his name again, because normally how we do this here in Biomassed is we go right down the list of the recording room in alphabetical order and let you introduce yourself. Because he took so much shit for changing his name to Soraya Zell so that he could go first, he's now changed it to Candidate Soraya Zell. And I'm also still mentally moving him to the end of the line. With that, we will start with Appia Vibia. Appia, can you give us a quick intro?
Appia Vibia, potential candidate for CPM1. Longtime Dust player, big fan. Longtime listener, first time caller. No, wait, second time.
Word. I like that. Okay. And Cross.
Cross the 2, a member of Covert Interventions and OSG. I'm a CPM1 candidate and all-around forum nerd.
Yep, and he's probably got the best smooth FM guy voice of anybody in the room as well. Iron Wolf Saber.
The beer, it helps.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm Iron Wolf Saber. I'm CPM0 secretary, and I'm also one of the best I want to say best, but one of the more prolific forum warriors.
Yep. Quantity is a quality unto itself. I believe I've heard that before. Pokey?
Pokey Draven. I'm CEO of OSG Planetary Operations and co-host here on Biomass, and I'm also a CPM1 candidate.
All right, cool. And by the way, just so everybody knows, he's the resident straight man in the room, so we can. He's the guy we'll play the jokes off.
Oh, it's just
It'll
gross.
work out well.
Oh, you meant that way.
And Black Jackal, who is, as we all know, the Thunder from Down Under.
Seriously had the music queued up then anyway, just as a poke at you. I'm the Black Jackal, former CEO of the Southern Legion and founder. Also one of the forum's more out there ideas guys, I suppose you could say. And possible CPM1 member.
Awesome. And I'm Jason Larison. I'm one of the co-hosts here on Biomassed. I'm a member of OSG Planetary Operations and Covert Interventions Alliance. On the Eve side, I fly with my boys from Contraband Incorporated. So all of you that are in the Amar Losec and adjoining Nullsec areas, I'll be trolling you soon. With that, let's kind of open it up and we'll talk a little bit about kind of the new event that's going on.
Jason, I will stab you.
Sure you will, brother. I have a smart bomb with your name on it. In fact, I'm going to put a bounty on you later tonight. It'll work out beautifully. So, go ahead, man.
I'm Soraya Zell. I'm an alliance leader in the Alliance Top Men in Dust 514. I am a co-host here on Biomassed, and I am also running for CPM1. Believe it or not, my constant screwing with my nickname on the Mumble server is actually an attempt to get him to implement some more fair and just solution, like randomizing the names every time he goes down the list. But I think that's too much effort for him, maybe. So we'll see if I can convince him. I'll keep working on it.
Now, this is working out great. You're making me actually provide structure so that I can continue to poke you. So,
Yeah.
so you're achieving your intent.
Right. So, and the other thing I wanted to throw out here while I have the floor is I was given the blame for the episode title, but this is actually this is Cross's title, and as soon as I heard it, though, I knew it was the title for tonight's episode. So
This is what happens when you allow Skype to determine your actions.
No, that's a fair point, but that's okay. It's not about Skype. It's just about my ease of reading for me. Just because I remember that when we had the CPM panel on that one night, we had like 9 or 10 people in the room, and I'm trying to like juggle the order so that like one person didn't get to go first every time for the questions, and so I was just like, no, fuck it, I'm just reading them all straight down the line. So with that, we'll move kind of into the show. And what we're kind of talking about tonight is kind of a mixed bag of topics. But one of the things that they have going on in game is the I think it's called something like destructive data mining or some kind of jazz like that. But long story short is they have a slew of light weapons that are that they've pinpointed that they're going to have an officer variant come out. And essentially whoever gets the most kills within the next, I think, couple 3 weekends or something like that, you effectively get to name the weapon, within some standards and decency or whatever. But
you have to agree.
Yeah,
with
you have to put something that's going to be acceptable to CCP. So that's kind of an interesting thing, and I would like to point out, but a couple things about this. One, this is actually something that the Dust community had pinged the community managers, the CCP community managers, about several times on a variety of different forum feedback posts when they were asking, like, hey, what are some community events you want? I remember reading those over the last year, and repeatedly, this is actually something that would come up where you could have events that would drive you to have like drop suits named after you, or weapons, or things like that. So this is in an interesting way. It's kind of something that the community's definitely asked for, and now what we're doing is we're laying it out. We're going to see how this all kind of shapes out. Now the interesting thing is, I think all these weapons they're talking about are essentially all proto weapons, and that does drive a lot of the proto stomping. But then again, I don't know. In all honesty, I'm not really entirely sure that it would be any more or less than you normally see on a given weekend. It probably just more a little bit attuned to it. So what I'd like to do is kind of just kick the ideas around to everybody. If you've got like a weapon you're particularly going for that you think you want to make a run at, let me know. And if you already have a name in mind that you're willing to share, that would be pretty cool. So with that, we'll kind of start it off. Anybody want to volunteer to go first?
I was just going to say that I think it's a really cool event. Because concerns about the proto stomping aside, which I think for the people who are going to make this run are probably proto stomping anyways in a lot of cases. But I think the really cool aspect of it is that even so Dust has a certain we all have kind of come to the acceptance that Dust does have an expiration date somewhere. But with any luck, these sort of custom things that have been made, like the naming of the planet, from the earlier tournaments, being able to be involved in the naming of weapons, those are things that can hopefully be carried through into Legion in some form, allowing Dust players kind of an exclusive opportunity to make a permanent mark. And I've always been really excited about the few opportunities that they allow that.
Yeah, I think it kind of gives a better sense of being involved with the game rather than just logging in every day and shooting shit. I think it's kind of cool to actually have some involvement with the community and give them a sense of I can still change the game even though that we're with the situation we're currently at. It's kind of depressing to many people, but I think being able to actually kind of get in there and leave your mark in the game is pretty cool. And on that note, the pokey plasma cannon will be mine, just as a challenge to anyone out there who wants to go at it.
That should be pretty good, actually. Yeah, you're actually getting pretty good with that thing, Pokes. I've seen you rolling with your Glittate Commando in that thing before.
Gonna have to jump in on this then.
Let's do it.
I really don't like the event. Just because there's really no point unless you know you're gonna win, and the fact that it's only on a weekend, even if there's four weekends it's going over, including the one that's just about to end, it just seems like if you know you can't dedicate the time, there's no point in trying. I was excited at first. I'm like, I can go for my favorite weapon, and I realized no. Then I would have to compete with the people that are no-lifing. Then I said, okay, maybe I can try the plasma cannon, because I do love it. So I was dual-wielding plasma cannons, the Allotech, and I just realized that, again, another part of the event is about who faces the worst opponents. And yeah, this isn't a fun thing to do. But I might go spend another like 200 million on it next weekend.
I like the concept of giving us the ability to move into and make permanent changes into the game, especially getting officer weapons named either after us or after something else we're naming or whatever. But I'd like to see events not focused on the Slayer role, if that makes sense. With weapons, it makes sense. You're using those weapons, you deserve to sort of get them, and it does sort of that. But something like an event that encourages repair tools or something like that, something along those sort of lines, or something that encourages something other than the slaying, which is something I'd like to see next.
That's actually a really good idea. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been like the Morty's Trials or something, or not the Morty's Trials, but there was an event maybe about a year ago, a little over a year ago, where it was not just kills, but they counted like things hacked and all kind of other random shit. That strikes me as that might be kind of interesting. But for the point at hand, I do really like the idea of players kind of leaving their permanent mark in the game in a way. And the reality is, it's an FPS shooter. It's an FPS, so other than killing people, there's a lot of options, but that's really the one that will bubble to the surface very quickly, I think.
Especially when it comes to weapons, obviously weapons are designed for killing people. So you're not, if you do something based on something else, like you want an officer uplink or something like that, clearly do something based around uplinks. Although that would be horrid equipment spam.
Because there's not enough of that already.
Yes, exactly. It would just be bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could play it, but that's always. I mean, actually, one of the things I thought would be interesting, and this is I can't remember who originally posted it, but it's in one of these feedback threads where this kind of thing comes up. And just like you had the devs had named drop ships or drop suits and vehicles, like have like a contest or something like that where the winner essentially you get to post up a suit. You have like the Appia CK0 or whatever with a fit that you lay out, and you get to write the backstory blurb that goes in it, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, with like fiction behind it, that would be an amazing one.
Yeah, that was the original idea. It was the God, who was the community? It was the community manager before Saber Wings. Anybody remember who that was? It was Commander Wang, right?
CCP Falcons, Commander Wing, and we also got Frame.
Okay, I think I want to say it was Commander Wang, but that was one of the things that actually gained some steam on the forums for a little while. Around the first of the year, was that discussion was naming something, but the idea was like custom drop suits, which I thought was a fantastic idea, and kind of an interesting way for folks to leave their mark. And in all honesty, I think what you guys said earlier is like, if all this does move to Legion and they keep the names of these things, that to me is that'd be a great gesture to a lot of the veteran community, is that the footprints that you leave in Dust now kind of get to echo in Legion. It's a small thing, but but I think it would mean something to the community.
Yeah, and I mean the planet naming thing would be another thing too, is if they could take PC in its current form probably will never work in Legion, of course, but those who have really met a certain mark in it could potentially be allowed to name some of the planets in the area, similar to the tournament rewards. Is kind of I really like the permanent landmark thing, and it's a nice thing too that some of the people who won't make it to Legion because they're PS3 only, they can still leave that mark behind.
Yeah, and they really shouldn't underestimate what that actually would mean to people. I think, and a lot of it. I mean, the reason people got so upset over this Legion situation is that they love Dust so much, and I think their reaction is so strong because of their love for the game. So I think they should really take a look at and understand that people care a lot, and giving them something where they can actually leave their mark and be a part of what they worked and played for all these years is pretty huge. I think it's something they really shouldn't underestimate.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately it costs them nothing. It's literally the amount of time it takes to type in to whatever the entry field is in their code or their backdrop or whatever it is to make that happen. So that's actually pretty good. Let's see, Jackal, what do you think? Is there any particular weapon you're going for, man?
I'm actually looking at the barrel rifle, but unfortunately it's an extremely popular weapon. Obviously, being Caldari slant of my character in game, I've obviously gone for the Caldari weapon, but unfortunately it is extremely popular to be used by anybody, so I've probably not got a chance of getting it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. That's let's see. I was looking at potentially doing like a swarm launcher thing, like run an AV, but in all honesty, I think Appy is right. Like, there's no way I have enough hours to devote to to the event to even come close to cracking it. So I'm just having fun with it right now.
Just use the flintlock, you'll be all set. No one uses that.
Well, no, that's what I was telling guys. Is like, if you want your best shot, stay away from anything that's like a mainstream weapon. Like, pick everything but a light weapon rifle, basically.
Unfortunately, most of your sidearms do not qualify this go around. There may be an event for it though eventually.
That'd be pretty legit. I'd give that a go.
Yeah,
that would make it
pool
pretty
is somewhat
interesting.
limited right now. It's assault rifle, combat rifle, rail rifle, scrambler rifle, laser rifle, mass driver, plasma cannon, sniper rifle, swarm launcher, forge gun, and HMG, and
There's
shotgun.
12, so
Getting enough swarm launcher kills to be competitive is actually probably hard.
No, I don't know about that. It's if you think about it, you can do it. You can, because they're counting kills. They're not counting vehicles destroyed. Because a lot of times you can nail a vehicle, particularly dropships, and it's usually the pilot can
Wait,
a lot of times
no,
escape.
you can never get a kill on a dropship because
No, you can't get-
they're too long in the air, and so people just jump out and end up killing themselves by running
Yeah,
themselves
they
over.
usually get-
That's what I'm saying. Is
They
it's
usually get
easier for
falling
them to
damage,
escape.
and it doesn't count as a kill by the swarm launcher.
What you should really
Yeah.
do is run as a squad of nothing but swarm launcher users, and just you're splitting kills, but your chance of actually dropping the vehicle are a lot higher then.
Squad of
Well, I
Minotaur
mean-
commandos.
What you do is you have a whole
yes.
team of swarm launchers, but then you always make sure that last burst or two goes to the same person.
It's like playing chicken.
Well, I as an Omni soldier don't have access to any prototype weapons, so I might as well just forget about this event.
I actually
understand the
trained
problem
plasma
with
cannon
that.
to proto just to do this event.
I'd say I'm an Omni soldier considering I've got all 20 rule suits. I've got 20 proto weapons. And yeah. I don't think an Omni soldier should be excluded from this because you should be able to cover all aspects, including the prototype weapons.
Well, maybe that's the which would probably be more difficult to manage, but that's that might be an interesting event for the next time, is the number of different types or styles of kills you can get in a given period.
I actually still see a ton of RE kills, which is something that was interesting to me with this event. I expected only proto weapons and only the ones on the list, and got RE kills in the kill feed at least 25% of the time all across the board
Well,
for my
bear in
playtime
mind-
this weekend.
A lot of people aren't trying for the event. I mean, I'm not trying for it. I know there's someone in my alliance who's trying for it, and I think he's probably doing quite well. But I personally am not going for it. So
Which sort of shrinks the pool to a degree. I mean, obviously, those who are consistently playing and playing heavily who want to do it have a distinct leg up, but with the frequency of, yeah, I'll play, but I don't really expect to be in contention that I've heard going on both on and off the forums, it seems like the pool of actual contenders for it is probably much smaller than it may seem.
well, that's because especially when you're talking about those medium rifles, you're going to be looking, for rail rifle, scrambler rifle, assault rifle, and combat rifle. Your winners are going to be the people who literally got up at downtime and played straight through 2 days straight, and rinse repeat the next weekend just in case.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the leaderboards by week, what I found is that a lot of those people tend to use, like in the lion's share, a single type of piece of equipment. That's probably the people I would put my money on to win, in all honesty. And it's probably not going to take that much more effort than they would normally put in anyway.
Plus, if you're like me and you like killing protosuits, this is actually a really good event if you want to go and use cheap gear like remotes to rack up a lot of proto kills, because people probably will be running with those proto weapons at their chance to win at this. So it works on both ends to some degree.
The only thing I'd ask is if they could bring back if they could bring in the nades for this, I would be a huge fan of that. Then I would probably actually try to win.
The CCP is waging a war on grenades. You should know that by now.
I'm acutely aware of that. Thank you.
I'm still perplexed by that.
I have no idea. People weren't asking for it. I never really thought it was an issue, and they're like,
I disagree. People were definitely asking for it.
Yeah, no, they were asking for it 6 months ago, and then people started throwing REs like frisbees, and then people forgot all about grenades.
Yeah,
Also
that's been
brings
pretty
back
much
to
my
the point.
experience.
Also brings back to the point, if you nerf REs, they're going to just go back to their fallback plan.
Well, but that's a little bit more of role definition then. Grenades, especially the locusts, that's their entire role. That's what they do. They don't really have any other function, even theoretically.
But the amount of damage they do, it's just...
but it's it's still a grenade. It does 750 HP damage. It's what it's supposed to do, as opposed to an RE that does like 12 to 1500.
I mean, the RE's mostly supposed to go for vehicles.
But I would say that the vast majority of things they kill aren't vehicles, though.
Right. I mean, like, now that we have like actual, you can put them on walls and things. They're not just this obvious little black disc on the ground.
Yeah, that's fair. But I would still like to see the nades back for it. I'm sorry, Pokey, I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
No, I'm just saying. I think it might be the arm time is probably some of the issue with the remotes. You could increase that, kind of remove the frisbee effect, and not really remove their other roles, which I agree. Like the traps and sticking into walls and ceilings and all kinds of fun places. But being able to toss it and detonate it, a second later is obviously problematic.
Honestly, they probably need a timer closer to 4 or 5 seconds to use them. They should be a plant as they should not be used when someone is pointing a gun at you already.
Well,
it might be a little long, but it's definitely longer than it is.
I was kind of thinking through this, and part of it is what you shouldn't have is something that's like a drop and throw away. Like in most games that I've seen, when you plant like an explosive, like the ubiquitous block of C4 or whatever, there's actually it takes a second for you to pull it down. It should almost look like a freaking nanite stab mechanic where you go down, you like drop your hand on the ground, or you drop it on the wall, or you sticky it on the wall, as opposed to literally just flinging it at somebody.
But that requires actual animations.
No, I know that. Yeah,
and if we had actual animations, you would actually see people getting in and out of cars.
Oh, I'll tell you right now that if like, people can talk about anything they want in the game being broken, this, that, and the other. People raged on my rail rifle. People raged on my core locust grenades, which, by the way, for the record, I had all that shit before people said it was OP. And the thing that bugs me personally the most is the heavy that teleports out of a lav, so that he's got his extra, like almost 2,000 HP that he can roll up on you and then just like blink right out in front of you and mow you down with an HMG. To CCP, I say, fuck you.
See, I'd be fine if they just added a hold the button to exit or enter a vehicle and just make it like a second long or something, so they have to stand there or stop there for a period of time before they can hop out, rather than just tap it once you're out, tap it once you're back in. That's what makes it really ridiculous.
You mean just like a delay, like once you initiate it?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like vehicle recalls. You got to hold the button down and a little timer starts spinning. So something like that. So they can't just roll up and hop out. It actually takes some time. And it's not an actual animation, but it kind of simulates the idea of, okay, I'm climbing out of the vehicle or I'm climbing back into the vehicle, and make it a little less ridiculous with, boom, you're dead, now I'm gone, and you have no way to retaliate.
No, I'm being sarcastic when I say this, but if you add that, how am I supposed to solo or be a solo player with an HMG? God, that's so unfair.
I mean, clearly the solution is you give heavies just like a passive 30 armor HP a second regen, and that would make it reasonable.
I was
Oh,
talking.
God.
I think I saw a post in the Legion forum that one of the devs was suggesting that perhaps with they might not have animations for Legion's launch for vehicle entry, but they were talking about making it so that you have to be on the side of the vehicle to get in a certain seat. So, if you wanted to get in the gun slot, you'd run around to the back of the thing, or if you wanted to get in the passenger seat, you'd be on the passenger side, and if you want to be in the driver's side, you do actually have to get in and out from the driver's side of the vehicle.
It's not bad.
And that definitely seemed like an appealing idea to me. It's not an end all solution, but it does make it at least a little less abusable. But
Well,
I
it's the
really want
getting
to
in
see an
isn't the
actual.
problem. It's the getting out is
Yeah.
the bug that kills you.
I'll be honest, while the stuff is clearly broken to a degree, I don't mind the heavies caravanning around because they're the only kills I get with my proxies. And a lot more of them die that way than you might think. They use really cheap lavs most of the time.
True. I think that. I watched a guy the other night in a match effectively like personally screen the red line, and he shall remain nameless, but he's a very, very good player. The reality is and he is, even without using this mechanic, and he was pretty smart about it. He used his lav, and he patrolled around the compound that was closest to our red line, and effectively he killed like one by one everybody that would stream down from the red line. He was devouring all these dudes as they were coming down, because he'd come screaming up in his lav, jump out, shoot him, jump back in. And then he got me twice this way, so I peeled off and I stopped and I watched him running his little attack drill. And basically I was like, okay, so I pulled back, sat in my rail rifle, and I was waiting just outside of his HMG effective range. I was like, well, as soon as he jumps out of the car, I'll put DPS on him. He's out of the car, kills the guy, back in the car, and I've got the reticle on target the whole time, hammering him, and I can't kill him fast enough by the time he gets back in the car. So finally I had to like run find a supply depot, then get AV. So I shoot him with the AV once, and it blows his lav up, kills him. So then he goes back to the same compound. He just sits right inside the doorway, waiting for everybody to continue to feed in. A really smart tactic, trust me. I'm not pinging on the guy for that, but the fact that a heavy who is designed not to move very well for a reason, because they become like OP and shit. For him to basically control that much ground with that lav, mostly because of the teleport in and out mechanic, that was ridiculous.
That's also the malicious scanners. They don't help.
Since since they took away the Logi LAVs, I can think of 10 people that have been Court Footsmith, and I'd include myself in this, that just run around in a BPO LAV, in a Templar Sentinel, and just with a Boundless HMG. You can just go in, go out. You can go into the red line, get the kills, come back out, go back in, go back out, back and forth. And it's just one of the best ways to rack up kills. And it's completely stupid, but most of the people that are good at the game are also going to be the ones that use the cheapest, stupidest, worst tactics that are just awful.
No, and trust me, I don't fault anybody for using the tactic if it's offered. My point is that it's one of the long litany of things that clearly should have been addressed in Dust, and hopefully will be addressed in Legion in some form or fashion.
Well, and just kind of think about, as we're talking about here, what you could do with that timer concept is that you could make that timer different depending on what kind of suit you're using. So like you said, the heavies don't move around so well. It takes them a little bit longer to get in and out of that vehicle, opposed to maybe a scout that can jump over the door or something. So it kind of encourages certain kinds of gameplay, knowing you've got limitations based on what frame size you're using.
Yeah, no, I'll buy that. At the end of the day, the reality is if a proto drop up link, which really does teleport you through a wormhole, is slower than you getting out of your Jeep, that's a problem.
That's a good point.
So
No, I'm not really a big fan of uplinks personally. So
I shouldn't have said that, because I knew at some point the thundering rumbles of somebody doing some shrimp on the Barbie would say some shit about uplinks. All right, so Jackal, I've got to ask you this: can you tell everybody out there in the listening world why you don't like uplinks? Because you usually will stop and make sure people know that you don't like uplinks, even if we don't ask you.
that's fair enough. I don't like passive equipment, if that makes sense, that you throw down and it just activates. It included nanohives, by the way, and I play Caldari Logistics. I don't like nanohives. I don't like the fact that you can throw them down and they just keep going. It's a mechanic that disenfranchises teamwork. You don't need to transport people via vehicles because you can just uplink in it. It's a lot more efficient, a lot more cost efficient as well, and it just detracts from teamwork. Whereas if you had or something, say a spawn beacon that you can equip or something like that on yourself, that then they can spawn around you. It promotes teamwork because they have to be with you. You can't just drop an uplink and run off and do something else. You have to be at the points. You have to be guarding, defending, or whatever, or working with your team in order to effectively use it. Same with ammo regeneration, or that sort of thing with nanohives. Have a module you put on, a piece of equipment that passively has an aura around you that slowly increases ammo supplies within the radius of you. So it encourages people to be closer to you and be as part of a team than throwing down something that you get war points from, despite the fact you're on the other side of the map.
That is, I have to say, I know I poked fun at Jackal before we did this, but there's a couple things going on here in a couple different levels. They do generate two different kinds of gameplay, and for the record, I actually think both are valid. What I would prefer to see is a bit of a hybrid where you could have like a proto module that was like a mobile CRU beacon and a proto like nano hive backpack or some shit, but basically you give the player both options because there are legitimate tactical reasons when you would want to hardpoint a location or put in specific types of uplinks in different places.
But that's the thing. I want them to actually stay with the point. At the moment, you can a lot of the time in, say, a skirmish battle or a PC match or something similar along those lines, you can hack your home point and then virtually move on. You throw down your uplinks, you throw down 3 uplinks or whatever there, and you move on. When someone dies and someone's at your home point, you can just spawn back there. Or I've seen people suiciding in order to do it.
No, Jack, I agree with you. What I'm saying is that I think your idea has merit, but that should be an option. It shouldn't be the way, because what you would then do is define how other people should play your game, as opposed to giving people an option to do either one. And I would tell you, I could find great tactical use for both.
Yeah, but as an option, if you had the option to throw down something and then move on, aren't you going to use the passive ability or option more often than you would use unless you had some benefit, unless you had some huge benefit for using the one that you equip yourself?
No, I think there's reason to do both. In fact, what I would want to do if I was running an uplink suit, if I was running a scout, you could do it one of two ways. Or like an uplink style logi, I would have one mobile and one droppable. And the droppable one I would want to put in essentially as a fallback spot. If all else went to hell, you always had something there. So even when you got killed with your mobile, that's like a secondary. That's literally like the emergency uplink, when you're trying to defend a piece of real estate or what have you. Or it's like the assault position that you can always stage guys on as you feed into a building or a compound and get killed. But I would love to carry the mobile because as a logi, I function much better when more people are around me. And the more people spawn within like a 10-meter bubble of me, better I work. So there's different uses for different ones. And I would tell you, if they would give war points for guys with vehicle crews, which I'm a ginormous proponent of people getting war points for mobile systems on vehicles. Driver. I would do that, and I think that'd be a highly utilized tactic. With the way ADSs can stay in the air, and if you could put a mobile CRU on them and not really crush their tank too much, that would be a fantastic way to move guys around the battlefield. And but I think that's something that you should get war points for. Just like when I think you stab somebody with a needle, and in a minute we'll get into why Appia thinks needles are horrible. But when you stab somebody with a needle, you should get the same amount of triage war points for the healing, which would, as you would with a rep tool. That way it would actually encourage people to run higher quality nanite injectors. Does that make sense?
I think the actual problem though with needles is that people don't clear the area. They stab you with a needle and get the war point reward, and then walk off.
That's a totally separate issue than what I'm talking about, though. It's like you're just talking about being smart tactical play at that point, not just the actual mechanic of the
smart tactical play. It's exploiting a mechanic. to get war points.
This is actually highlighting the issue with having uplinks as a spawn-on-player thing, because you think people scream about being revived in a hot zone. If you're spawning in on someone and you can't see the area around them due to the way that scanning works, you can be spawning into fire and not know it. And that's going to be a thing that will absolutely happen if you tie spawning to someone's suit. You're guaranteeing camping if the person's actively in the battle. Otherwise, they're going to be hiding somewhere.
Love to see deployable spawning leave, except for maybe as really a thing for carrier class vehicles like dropships and probably Mavs, because I would like to see more combat around like the CRU as a secondary objective as being a very important tactical control point, which it really isn't. Except for an annoyance that it's there, because you can blow it up.
I disagree with that, Zell, pretty thoroughly.
But
it
going on with
devalued.
what Cross
It's
said,
devalued.
if you were spawning on people, that would be bringing in ambush-style spawn mechanics into domination and skirmish. Just, hey, let's all pile into this thing and kill everyone.
Only if they left the guy alive. Generally, if there's only one guy left and you're spawning into a combat zone due to that, he's surrounded. If he's not dead, he's playing it.
No, but I would also.
No, it's like Caldari Scouts right now. If you want to keep the scans on the field, you hide. You keep the scout out of combat so that you have that asset permanently on the field. Logis would become the same thing. It's another player that will be camping somewhere away from combat, doing nothing for their passive ability to be ticking off. It takes people out of the game.
It can also put people in the game, though. That's the thing, and also make transport vehicles a bit more prolific.
Also, another.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ironwolf.
Another problem I can see with this is that it gets rid of another role, the equipment disposable guys.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I mean, that's why you carry flux grenades for the most part.
I mean, it's not really a role. It's more of your first target should be to take out uplinks and equipment before you push in.
No, but I think what he says, it's not the guy, but like you really do, like other than some very specific situations, flux grenades become not very useful at that point.
Yeah, it really flattens gameplay.
I mean, I think, and I come down sort of in the middle line position of all this, is that I think there are great tactical uses on both ends, but they're situational. And if you give the options to the players, then guys can do both, do one, do the other. I'm okay with that. What I don't like doing is trying to dictate how people should play.
Speaking of having options, I should have the option not to be revived in my 87 HP Mimitar Scout suit.
A freaking man.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
That's something we can all agree on.
That exists in pretty much every game of the revive mechanic except for Dust.
Yep, that's been one of the biggest peeves I've had since the game launched. I don't understand why CCP thinks the way they do on this, and why this wasn't absolutely a top priority.
On a related issue, KDR is bad, and it should feel bad. It really has no place in a game like Dust.
That's also true.
I'll buy that.
I've always liked the war points per death metric because it's a bit more, assuming that war points are halfway balanced, which they're usually not, but the general concept is that logistics and other roles like that are equally valued in a metric like war points per death, and hacking and is represented.
Militia nanite injector, 60 war points per revive, takes no skill. Oh, how many? Oh, you only get 50 for a kill, and you actually have to, sacrifice armor, ammo, put yourself in danger.
I have to tell you this. I was not going to bring this up, but you've sort of forced my hand. Anytime that most of us see you in a blue situation, everybody immediately dumps their suit and carries nanite injectors just so that we can find you on the battlefield. I want you to know that.
I'm just so glad you're all such terrible players.
No, I mean, seriously, I will say this, though. You bring up a really good point, though, Appy, and I'll tell you, and again, I'm a dedicated Logi bro, so what I would tell you is I don't think you should get 64 points for a militia revive. I think you should get like 25, okay? But then the amount of armor that you regen, that's where the rest of your points come. So, because right now, basically, it's far more efficient to run a militia needle, or actually a standard needle, because you shave like 1 or 2 PGE off of it. You run a standard needle, which costs nothing, basically, and then I stab you, and then I stand back and I rep you with the good rep tool, and then I reap points. That's actually if you wore a suit that had HP in it, by the way. But I think that mechanic is sorely out of balance, because you're right. Like that standard level injector, which all I have to do is roll up and hit R1 or circle, nets me those 60 war points, and it could very well put you in a bad spot. What I think it should do is only give you 25 war points, unless you've actually skilled into the needle. And by the way, if you're somebody who's actually put real SP into nanion injectors, you might be smart enough not to revive you in front of somebody that's going to get you both killed.
If you're still running a Mitar Kaldari suit, there's no armor on that to revive.
Yeah, and?
But even then, it'd be far better to use a standard rep tool, because it's done on cycles. War points are done on cycles. You get up to, what was it, like, you can get 15 cycles of war points from repairing?
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is, like, it should be a flat cost based on, or a flat gain rather, based on
repair.
The HP. Yeah,
establish an actual war point per HP repaired ratio. It's been something that I've been asking CCP to do since Bloody Closed Beta. The entire equipment line, war points wise, is deeply buggered, to put it bluntly.
Well, they went the easy way and went with cycles rather than actual, HP restored. I mean, I would probably even argue you don't even get the flat rate. I think it should just be, the equivalent as if you had repaired them. That equivalent amount of HP is what you would get in terms of war points for the revive. Because it shouldn't be, I should use a crappy needle so they have less HP so I can use a crappy repair tool to repair them for longer to get more points out of it. That's just stupid.
Yeah, I could buy that. I could work with that.
And that promotes actual scaling. I mean, you don't see decent needles hardly ever outside of key and very select PC situations, because honestly, the present system actively de-incentivizes the use of anything beyond that 30% needle.
Well, also, you're better off taking a fourth or third equipment slot than a needle, because it's so fucking useless.
I think that's your subjective opinion. I would tell you there's plenty of times when needles...
That is my subjective opinion as a PC vet.
Well, that's fine, but I would tell you there's plenty of times when that needle has gotten a heavy up off the ground and back in the fight with a core focused or a 6-skin rep tool on him, and the dude immediately turned the tide of the fight.
Yeah, 100% needle on a armor buffer tanked Galente heavy is not irrelevant. Assuming that it's not also broken with the animation and the ability to target and all the other endemic issues to the revive mechanic itself.
And when you're talking about an old classic clone pack fight where you had 100 or 120 clones, yeah, that revive tool starts looking real good.
Well, and not to mention that...
No, go ahead, Pokey.
And just because a module feels useless in PC doesn't mean that it's a useless module. I mean, PC is only a part of the game, and to say that you should remove it from all aspects of the game is pretty narrow-minded.
I mean, it should be removed from the game because you can't choose not to be revived.
Well,
and it's better not to have it than.
Yeah, but you
exploit
can't
people.
choose to do a lot of things.
I
can't choose not to get shot by a combat rifle. That doesn't mean I don't want them there.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's annoying that you can't choose to be revived. I mean, that's terrible. But in the end, you're really only losing KDR, which is irrelevant anyways. But yes, you're right. That mechanic to deny the revive should exist. But in general, the nanite injector should remain in the game because many people use it to great effectiveness in both PC and...
It would be a completely different point if, it gave you a set amount of HP instead of just armor.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. But that's what we're getting at. You're advocating that the piece of equipment be just stripped from the game. Why not? But what we're all saying is that it needs to be adjusted. So why not just adjust it and make it value added?
Heck, make a shield-based variant.
That's what I would do. I would say right now.
No, I mean, it can't just be one or the other. It needs to be a set HP.
No, that's fine. I think that's fine.
Or dual percentage.
Yeah, and that's what I would do. Is just have variants that give you slightly more. Now, I actually would tell you, I wish that I had a rep tool that I could juggle like a shield factor on, like a shield energy, like a remote shield energizer. That's a pretty well-known mechanic in the EVE world and would work basically the exact same way. It would just give a third value to the rep tool. other than just armor on vehicles and armor on infantry. I would be very cool with that. That way you have another options, just more options of equipment to run based on the composition of your squad or the tactical scenario you're in.
That would indeed make like the Cavalry Sentinel a lot more useful than just being a forge gunner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, think about this: if you look at it from the aspect of how many more options can you give players, a lot of the existing mechanics could work really well. Like all the triage hives. Hey, fine. Instead of giving out ammo, it's like a fucking like I said, a shield, remote shield energizer or something around that one little circle. Performs the same function as it would for the for armor. And anybody who says, stuff like, but Caldari is supposed to be shield tank, this, that, and the other. Yeah, right. Well, I'll buy that to a degree, but they're shield focused. That means they should have a way of repping their shields faster, or temp buffing their shields. I mean, there's 1,001 things that we could do, or that we would like to have done, most of which probably won't get done in Dust. But in Legion, there's a lot of room to maneuver as far as this goes. So I mean, that's kind of how I'm kind of coming down on it.
I was always a little perplexed in the lack of a shield transporter tool, since they obviously do exist in Eve and are used quite frequently, but they don't exist in Dust. And we had them for Logi LAVs for a little bit, yeah, but I don't know why we never got that. It seems a little strange to me.
I think it was another sloppy balance thing. At the time, shields were so overbalanced and so much stronger than armor that adding anything to shields was going to be completely game breaking, so they just kind of didn't.
I do actually have one question to kind of tee up for you guys. Expel Dust, he actually dropped me a question here in the Biomassed Skype channel. I'll read it to you guys so I don't slash it real quick. Hang on. Okay.
I can just ask it directly.
Oh, there you are. Hey, great. Well, before you do that, you're going to have to give a quick intro.
Oh, sure. I'm Expelled Dust, CPM1 candidate, mostly focusing on expanding ways for people to build third-party applications that can hook into Dust. So I was just poking the question on the Biomassed channel, which was just to kick off a conversation about the proposed changes to installations. So because people were asking, hey, installations, the original plan was they're going to be disposable because we're meant to be able to call them in tactically. But seeing as we're never going to be able to call them in on demand, there was a question on the forums which is getting, 20, 30 upvotes so far of, hey, why don't we just buff these turret installations so that they're actually a tactical point on the map now, rather than being something which HAVs go around and just two-shot. Why don't we buff up the HP on them up to the level of, say, supply depot, and that way they're actually fixed points on a map that we can now tactically defend, and they're actually worth hacking now. So I just thought I'd kick that conversation off.
I'm in a big favor of it. I've talked about it a long time. I don't think it should be free Warpoint candy for tank drivers. I think that honestly, I would take the AI off of it. I would rather see them be as nearly indestructible as a CRU, but only useful when manned by a player, so that rather than being something that tanks and other vehicle drivers immediately try to take out, something that would remain through the game in most cases, and be a valid method for infantry to combat vehicles.
I'm sorry to point out, we'll still take them out. HAV drivers will still take them out because they're Earth threat. Even if they're blue, we always want to take them out because
Here's my question.
The infantry don't guard them, so we will always try to take them out no matter what.
If it takes you the first 4 minutes of the fight to clear them out, are you going to do that?
We clear our CRU, so yes, probably.
I think that you'd probably find that if they're buffed where they should be, that you would be handing a loss to your team by focusing on non-moving objectives and ignoring the actual combat situation, and that's where it needs to be. They need to be
preserving our own role on the field. If we get killed by that said turret, we won't be any use to the team anyway.
But I mean, if there's a certain turret that's in your way, you should have you then have a reason to take it out. The idea that you just go around and clear all the turrets off the map should be something that should be prohibitively hard to do, or at least prohibitively time-consuming to do, to the point that it's not worth your effort. It renders them pointless. If they're not going to buff them to the extent that and keep buffing them to the point that tankers stop bothering trying to remove them before the start of the fight. They should just remove them because they're not contributing anything to the game except giving tank drivers and swarm launchers. Because swarm launchers, the only thing they can still kill is installations. They kill those very well. But there's no point in having installations if they're at a level where tankers will focus on killing them.
I agree they need to be buffed. That's a non-issue. You know, they do need to be buffed so they're actually at least competitive versus another tank. However, buffing them to the point where they're stupidly hard to kill, most tankers will still take them out because they're still a threat.
No, that's fine. You can do that, but I think the point is when you shoot something twice and it blows up and it goes away, and all it does ultimately is just feed war points to you to get your first OB. What's the point of it?
Right.
Another big problem with the thing though is that they're in terrible locations.
Yeah, no, that's legit. I'll be very frank with you. Like that is totally legit. Is the way that they're placed tactically. I would, I'd offer that maybe there's a happy medium there. Is that if they were less difficult to kill than a CRU, but clearly harder than they are now, and I think you left the AI on it, so that way when a tanker shoots it once, the turret can slew to you, and then if the tank driver who can move and get behind cover and do a lot of different things, you actually have to work to kill the thing. That's all I would ask, honestly.
I'd like the large blaster and large missiles to be normalized to be the same as the tanks, because
that's legit.
Large missile blasters large missile installations can shoot, to the end of a map, to the end of a forever. And the large blaster turrets they've still got the pinpoint accuracy that the turrets used to have on tanks, but they still have the old range.
Yeah, I think the key point here is that they should be more difficult to kill, but not to a point where it's ridiculous, where tankers can still take them out, but they need to be more tactically choosy on which ones to take out because of the time constraints. I don't think that Zell is trying to say that it needs
the time constraints. To clarify that is that I feel that there should be a deciding point. I can take out the turrets so that they won't all of the turrets ahead of time, so they won't be a threat to me. But that holds me out of the battle for a long enough point that I may be hurting my team because I can't provide them the support that they need.
Well, there's a bigger part to it, because I would tell you that the minute I figured out it took a tank, if he got fixated on turrets, the first thing I spawn in with is a big boy AV fit, and then I park myself in a place where I know he's got to go, and I'm going to kill your tank before you can kill that turret. And I think that's actually the bigger thing. You're right. It would take time, Soraya, but it would not take long for people to figure out then spawn in with AV gear if somebody's stupid enough to try to roll tanks that way. And you won't get away for that long. It'd take maybe a week and a half before people stop doing it. Or what would happen is tanks would rack pack together and then try to do and they would try to alpha turrets, which by the way, I would be very okay with that. If 2 to 3 tanks patrolled in together and then they tried to alpha turrets, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that.
It needs effort, coordination, something. It needs to be a decision point, not look, there's some free war points I get because I'm a tanker. That's
on that note, the turrets also need to be able to have their radius of targeting go up somewhat more, because if we make all these changes that make it a tactical asset to combat vehicles and an ADS can still just hover above it and pop all of them without any real effort because they simply can't aim upward very far, then you've just recreated the problem in a slightly different form.
That's true.
Well, you need to do that with all turrets. I mean, the fact that
including vehicle ones.
Yeah, no, that's that's why I keep saying the small rail turret right now is the best thing going for against an ADS, because you can max elevate that thing to almost 5 degrees or something like that. But anything else, it's once that ADS gets in close vertically to a vehicle, it's fucking done.
They need to fix small turns and basically the elevation relationship with the vehicle, because if you're parked on a hill and you're trying to shoot something with your small turret, the aiming's way off.
I'm trying to think when I would have done that. I haven't had too many problems with it. I'm not saying it's not there. I haven't experienced that yet.
It's most noticeable as a small railgun.
No, I mean that's what I use almost exclusively. That's what I'm saying is I'm trying to think of a time when I remember. Are you saying the reticle goes off or something?
No, where the shot lands and where the reticle is are two entirely different things if you're not parked on a perfectly flat spot.
I have not noticed that, and I've taken out more than a few dropships recently with a small turret. Hey, Cross, when we were running that the other day, did you have any issues with the aiming mechanic on the rail turret?
I did not specifically. We were mobile a fair amount, but to
Yeah,
some
that's fair.
extent, while it's anecdotal, I almost feel like that goes to show that at least for us, we were in a good position as far as the aiming goes because most of the shots were landing. That being said, what Iron Wolf's talking about is if you're not on a flat surface, and we were mostly tank hunting on roads, so we were flat
Yeah,
if mobile.
That's fair. Okay.
Also, you're
becomes
aiming
long-
at really large targets too, so
That does help.
It becomes a lot more noticeable on longer ranges against smaller targets. Like back when the large railguns had the 600-meter range, it was extremely noticeable that the bullet did not land where you were actually aiming it. At least at the small rails, if you can hit it, it's probably close enough to not really notice that difference if you're on level ground.
Okay. That's pretty fair. I think at the end of the day, it's all about can you make more things on the map worth fighting for, and it sounds to me like a moderate HP buff to turrets would be pretty legit. I would also tell you, and I'll even pull one out of sort of out of the Jackal card deck. If you cut the number of spawns that a spawn uplink could drop, dramatically, you would immediately increase the importance of the CRU pods. And I'm not advocating for that. I'm just using that as an example of there's different ways to make things on the map other than the panel on the objective kind of important.
I really haven't experienced the CRUs being irrelevant. I've experienced a lot of players treating them as irrelevant, but I haven't experienced them actually being irrelevant very often at all.
Yeah, a
I
lot
mean, I
of the
take the
games
time
I really request that the vehicle pilots will take out the CRU, because when it's like near your home point in the skirmish and somebody takes that, it's so incredibly inconvenient and to take it back.
I would say less that it's irrelevant entirely. It's irrelevant for your team to spawn with because of drop up links. It's not irrelevant. It's the only relevance it has is that it's hard to get rid of, because your only issue is if the enemy has it. You don't really need it yourself in most cases. If you're on a defensive side, you don't want, like, if you're defending, you don't even want a CRU, and because you have better
you do.
uplinks. And
No, the reason you want it is because that's usually the thing that you can hard spawn on. That's the last thing you'll be able to hard spawn on in order to try to regain the momentum at whatever location you're defending.
See, that's the complete opposite way if I'm looking at it. It's the thing you want to start momentum after you've been pushed out on the offensive.
yeah, because
Say that again?
it provides an instantaneous spawn point, and it's
Yeah,
hard. So
I'm pretty sure that's what I just said.
Yep.
No,
It's
you're
also
saying for
faster
defense,
than
I was saying
a
for
lot of.
offense.
Yeah, but it works the same way. If you just hammered off an objective and all your uplinks are gone, that's what you can spawn in on, because it takes the longest to kill it or flip it. Just like if you're on the offense, usually the very first thing you take is not the panel, it's the CRU.
I think you're both agreeing with each other. It's just either from an attacker or defender standpoint for that objective.
Yeah, no, I buy that.
It's also faster than most uplinks now. I mean, the
That's
Amarsu
true.
side.
I mean, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, in that if something is difficult to do, it should be the most efficient in doing that. So uplinks are easy. You drop them. They're there. That you can put them wherever you want. That's easy to do. It should take longer to spawn on those. Where CRU, you actually have to get in there, hack it. It's hard pointed. It's only there. You should have a faster spawn time. And the same thing goes for kind of what Jack was talking about earlier. It's kind of a throwback to the previous discussion, but the idea of kind of active equipment. I mean, you kind of see it as in like a repair nanohive is easy. You drop on the ground, it reps people. You don't have to target anyone. It reps at a certain rate, whereas a repair tool is far more efficient because you actually have to follow the guy around. You have to be actively involved in it. And I think, is if you kind of maintain that philosophy, you've got a lot of options for things you can do to make things a little more balanced or interesting, but without restricting people to saying, oh, you can only do it this way. So I kind of like to see more of that in terms of spawning and equipment and whatnot, and I think that could go a long way.
No, I think that's pretty legit, actually. I mean, like I said, to me, it's all about how many more options do you give players, and then they can choose to take them or not, or frankly, come up with novel or emergent approaches, which 2 weeks earlier would have been, absolute, idiocy. It's like, hey, there's no way that'll work. But somebody figures out a way to make it work or to change the meta, and that's the thing that I enjoy about, Dust and Eve, frankly, is that it's deep enough that you can do that. I think that's pretty cool. So let's see. We've got a couple different topics bubbling up here that we probably want to talk about. Yep. Okay. So we got one chiming in on ask for a little bit about the election. So I guess we can give a quick update on sort of where we're at for the election. My understanding is they're going to start voting on July 7th. Is that what you guys are tracking?
Yeah, they're gonna have it going from July 7th to July 22nd. But the big concern right now is that they started at the beginning of June. They started taking applications for candidates, and they've kind of been approving them as they go. And in particular, a couple weeks ago, a list of 9 candidates was announced as approved. And then there's just been this big absence of any further approvals, and we're hearing, I believe the word is that everyone will be approved by Wednesday of next week here, and that's going to leave them 5 days between being officially on the list and people being able to vote for them. And I'm a little concerned that's a bit short for some of them to work with, because I had someone, as soon as that post went up about the approved candidates, actually, I did have someone on Skype actually message me and say, well, congrats on being, on CPM1, dude. There's only 9 candidates and there's 7 seats. And I'm like, there's not only 9 candidates. You're not correct. And unfortunately, there's definitely a perception people have that the existing list is all we're going to get, and that's definitely far from the truth.
Yeah, I was kind of frustrated that when I saw the email go out for, hey, check out this form for, all the CPM1 candidates, and I'm like, yeah, we're missing quite a few people, myself included. And I shot Logibro an email at that time and said, hey, can I get a confirmation on what's going on? And he emailed me back within like 3 minutes. Like, he was like quick about it. I'm like, well, okay, I would have liked to confirm you actually had the application when I submitted it, over a week ago. So a lot of people are really frustrated. I know, Appy, is what, 3 weeks you said?
Yeah, I mean, I emailed Logibro after the 10th business day, and it was like, yeah, we'll email you when it happens. And I didn't really get any information other than Affairs is still looking at it, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's what I think. Iron Wolf checked on that and said that everybody was still in the IA phase.
Yep, I can confirm that's where I'm stuck for the last 12 days.
Yeah, I'm on day 22 now.
I would say that if you think about the election starts on the 7th, and they're probably not going to be working beyond the 4th, then if it's not done by the 4th, then your name's not up for the election. So that tells me that's grounds for them to move the actual election window to the right.
Why would an Icelandic company celebrate July 4th?
I didn't say anything about July 4th. July 4th is on a Friday. I'm talking about Friday, not the holiday.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of concerns me is that the email I got back was, well, assuming there's no problems, because you submitted your app before the deadline, you'll get in. And my thought is, well, if there's a problem I can fix, am I screwed then? Because you finally got around to reviewing it after the deadline, and if I typoed something, am I out then? How's that going to work? I think if people get screwed because of poor turnaround time, that's going to be real problematic.
Well, depending, it may be very important that candidates be checking their inbox next, this coming week, in case something does come up, so that they can respond quickly. Because I do believe there can be some back and forth if an issue is found for someone to kind of speak up about it.
Yeah, and again, I have a certain amount of empathy for. I think pretty much all of you guys are actually running, other than me. So I see the position you're in, and it's different because I'm pretty cognizant of what's going on with the elections, and I know most of you, one degree or another. So it's simple for me. But when you think about it, the majority of people don't know you. All they're going to get is what they might see on the forums, and again, the forums are a relatively small part of the population of Dust. So my assumption is whatever's going to happen, you're going to get a a blurb on the opening screen that says go to this website, go to the Dust website to vote. It might explain something about what the CPM is. Like, my opinion, what they should be doing is every time you load your screen, like starting like 2 weeks ago, there should have been a CPM coming up, CPM log coming up. This is what the CPM is, so that way you have to, like, at least it's fresh in front of people's face, like every time they load the game up.
Well, currently Demo TD on Dust does have a link. Well, not clickable, but it does have a link to the blog that's currently up right now about the elections.
Okay. I mean,
I must have missed that then.
yeah, I totally don't see that every time I open the screen up. I mean, what they're showing me is still the hotfix Bravo stuff.
Yeah, if you have a look underneath it, there's actually a next topic in the scroll down, but no one ever scrolls down.
Yeah, I would have never known that. Like, they need to get rid of the hotfix Bravo shit, which has already happened, and then put whatever the current new Dust stuff is up there.
Well, hopefully next week they'll go all out with it. Really, I would love to see them actually, and I hope they push like an email newsletter thing about it. That would be really great if they could get that going next week, so that everybody knows. Even if they haven't logged in, this week or something. And I think it's going to be a big deal for alliances and corps to send out to everybody and just tell them, look, here's the election. You should vote in it. No matter who you're voting for, vote, participate, because the more legitimacy that the election has, the more that the more legitimate it'll appear to EVE players as well, which is very important that they respect the property in a manner that gives CCP the leeway to say, enough people want this for there to be more game integration. And I know that's a big part of having the vote match involved too. Is that that's a very respected organization, EVE side, and it's pretty cool that they are going to be doing a vote match for Dust as well.
Speaking of that, if people want to submit questions for the vote match, I think they are taking them on the forum, so get on there
there's
and
a
check
sticky
it out.
thread for it. And for those who don't know, the vote match is a pretty awesome site where all of the candidates will be presented questions that they can submit their answers to, and then prospective voters can take the same questions and answer them, as well as indicating how important those topics are to them. And then the vote match site will use that to present to you kind of a ranked list of how closely aligned you are with different candidates. And so if you don't know everybody really well, it could be a really great way to kind of see who's agreeing with you on topics that you may not have seen them discuss.
I really like that it looks like they're going to wait to post anything until after all the candidates are up.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. It wouldn't surprise me if they move the voting period to the right, just because of this. I mean, let's be real. Like, if in general CCP works, 2 weeks to the right of whatever date they originally set, which we're kind of running true to form. And my understanding, maybe Iron Wolf, you can chime in on this, is that I think Logibro and Ratati are kind of the only people running this election. I mean, they're doing all the work for this, right?
Ratati is still specifically working on Dust 514. He's not doing anything with the elections mostly. It is mostly still all Logibro's show. He's working closely with Web Team and a couple other community managers in order to make this election possible.
Yeah, if you think about it, that's just an additional duty on top of anything else he's got going on. So,
and he's not just the community manager; he's also been doing some of the work directly with the dev team as well. So he's kind of doing like triple duty or something right now, because they downsized some of our favorite community members.
CCP Logibro's main priority is still the CPM. He's the CPM handler, and thus forth it's his program.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine if they're running behind schedule. That's cool. Just make sure enough time is given for all things that need to happen to actually happen and not rush things. Because, I mean, kind of like I mentioned before, I don't want any issues to arise where you've got issues with applications or like Zell said, where there's not really enough time to get your name out there if you haven't necessarily been campaigning ahead of time. Maybe giving it an extra week may be beneficial and really not that harmful.
I mean, my "I told you so" is that I think I might have even said this in my initial campaign post, like months ago, and obviously I didn't expect it to take anywhere near this long to get to an election date. But I started early, because I had this feeling that when CCP did it, it would end up feeling very, very rushed. And, it does seem that may be the case again.
Yeah, as anxious as I am to actually have the elections done and in the bag, I would much rather them take a little bit more time and make sure that all of the candidates are not only cleared, but have some time to campaign and present themselves. Because a better field just makes for a better CPM regardless of who's on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I still have a great amount of admiration for the work that Logibro does for for the community. Trust me, I'm not poking on that. I think my only point is that my understanding right now is you still have to petition to get your thread moved over to the newly formed or recently formed rather speakers area or candidate area. And there's some hoops you got to go through, and if you're not recognized as a legitimate candidate, but effectively legitimate in the eyes of CCP, if you're not recognized as that until immediately prior to the election, that is honestly a little bit problematic. And when I say moving to the right, I poke fun at them a little bit, but it seems like it would be better for them unless they're being driven by internal forces to want to push it through. And in all honesty, that's fine too. I mean, if that's what has to happen, that's cool. And don't get me wrong, I'm also not saying that I'm not trying to nitpick either. I'm actually really glad, as just a member of the community, that the elections are looking like they're going to come to fruition, because I think we've all been waiting on them for a long time. And not the least of which is the folks actually sitting on the CPM 0 now. Well, other than Iron Wolf Saber, who's running again. But so that's just one of those things that it's. I don't think anybody doesn't want them to get this right. Not the least of which is themselves, because from their perspective, what they have to do is they have to set the conditions for these folks that they're going to work with to a degree for however long that CPM 1's in place. And I think they would prefer to get it right and have a good relationship with the player community, such as it is, as opposed to not doing it right, then having some kind of drama filled period, CPM 1 period. But again, that's just an outsider with zero inside information, just offering a perspective on it. We're hitting at about the hour and 20-minute mark, so I'll throw it up. If anybody's got any last-minute topics or things they want to hop on real quick or mention that's been going on, let me know. And if not, we'll probably start shout-outs in a little bit. So you guys got anything you want to kick out there one more time?
I'll just like to quickly say that CPM 0 is the longest cancel on either game's history so far, and it's been a long term for anybody, just about.
No, that's entirely understandable. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, looks like we're going to go ahead and start up with shout-outs, and what we'll do is we'll just, like I said, normal skit, guys. Just shout out to anybody you want or for anything. So we'll start with Appia.
Shout out to CCP Logibro for doing the election and for unbanning me from the forums back in January.
That's pretty legit. Okay. And candidate Sarai Zell.
I'm gonna give a shout out to Hinox, who I heard released a new story today, and so he deserves his name and lights for that. I haven't seen it yet, but I do hear it's out. I also give a shout out to CCP Logibro as well, just to further annoy the Thunder from Down Under there.
Oh, that means we're all doing it now.
And a shout out to my guys in Top Net.
Okay, and Cross?
Give a shout out to all of the new players. Yes, they still exist, and they're still trying out the game. And guys, I hope that you've at least taken the time to start paying attention to the election, even if you're not in the voting requirement, and talk to people about it. But mostly just glad to have folks in the game who are still playing and maybe a little bit less bitter vet than my present company, myself included.
Okay, Iron Wolf?
I like to give a shout out to Free Beers because despite having so many arguments with him, at least he makes me think other ways, at least.
Word. Very nice. All right, Pokey?
Again, a shout out to Logibro. I apologize if I was a little anxious and freaked out in my email when I asked for confirmation on my application, but I think my concerns are understandable, but I appreciate you doing this for us, finally getting to push through. I think we've all been very anxious.
Would you like to like harm his pet koala or something?
Not quite that much, but I was I was definitely anxious because I was a little concerned about the situation on the application, and whatnot. So, but yeah, thanks to him. Thanks to all the guys for coming on the show again. Lots of fun to have you here. Good discussion, and shout out to OSG. You guys are awesome. I know you're having lots of fun playing with the event right now. So let's keep it up.
Okay, and Black Jackal.
Well, as everyone's pointing out, I was going to do a shout out to Logibro, fellow Down Under person, obviously. But yeah, thanks for putting every effort you've been putting in for the game in general. Obviously for CCP with Tati as well. You've been doing some great work. Keep it up. I want you to make Dust as close to the game as it should have been, as humanly possible. Also, shout out to all my other guys in the Final Resolution.Alliance, including the Southern Legion, all my Aussie bros and New Zealand bros, and all the US and EU people who have recently joined us, and we're having a lot of fun.
Awesome. And for a couple of shout outs tonight, again, would like to just give a shout out to the community as frictious as it is sometimes and on the verge of being toxic occasionally. It's a very tight group of players that play Dust, even if they're not on the forums or they're not in Skype or whatever. But when you play with guys, it's a lot of fun. I played a lot of lobby shooter style games or a lot of multiplayer games in the past, and as painful as it is sometimes, it is a pretty strong community. And we've lost a lot of players since FanFest, but you know what? Cross is right. A lot of new guys have come on board, and the numbers aren't that much different than prior to FanFest, which that tells me, but it's pretty interesting, and it speaks a little bit to the game. And one of the things I would say is that a lot of the new bros coming in who don't know that much about the history of where Dust came from, they don't have the same sort of data glasses that they're wearing like we do. The game is actually not that bad. It's actually pretty decent, particularly for a free-to-play game on Sony. And that's mostly coming from folks that are new to the game, like joined like a month or two ago, so they haven't seen the trials and tribulations that we have. So I give a shout out to the community and particularly all the new bros coming in. And beyond that, all the folks that are here that show up and actually make the show possible. So Appia, Cross, Iron Wolf, and Jackal, really appreciate you guys coming on. And it's a lot of fun to do this. It's one of these things that, I could spend the time playing the game or occasionally posting on a forum or doing whatever, but it's a lot of fun just to sit here and talk to you guys and kick ideas back and forth. And it's even more fun for me, and this goes back to the community shout out, when I can take questions that folks are asking me either on Skype or Twitter or email, and they're asking me, hey, can you guys talk about this on the show, or can you have this person on the show? Because it tells me we're actually reaching folks out there and we're providing some good content. Any MMO is all about content. So,
but it also tells you that talking about the game is more fun than playing it sometimes. Just sometimes.
Well, it can be. It could always be fun. But I will tell you this though. This is kind of the last thing before I close this out. Every time I've come off of one of these Sunday night episodes, I will take somebody else said that they did in the game, and I will try it usually that night or on Monday night, and I usually have a lot of fun doing that. So. Yes, I know, and I got my free plasma cannons the other day, so I'll probably try them out. So,
especially the ropes, Jake.
Oh God! The last thing I want you helping me on anything, man.
What's that supposed to mean?
Happy, I love how that was whispered too. It was like a just like a subconscious
subliminal message. Yeah,
subliminal message. Plasma cannons.
It was the little CK0 scout suit, like sitting on my left shoulder, and the little Caldari fat guy sitting on my right shoulder talking to me. It's funny. So
conveniently, they're both me.
Yes, I know. we will close this episode out. Otherwise, we probably just keep talking for the next couple of hours, but because we do have a lot of fun on this show, guys. So appreciate everybody listening. Sorry that the live stream wasn't up. We do apologize for that. But we will have this up on iTunes directly probably tonight. Brian's very quick about that. And again, any feedback on the episode or really the show in general, just get a hold of me, Pokey, or Shia. We're very accessible to this. Just get a hold of us, and we would love to take your suggestions. If you have topics you want to put up, or if you have very specific guests you want to bring, or something like that, just let us know. And who knows, maybe we'll even have Pinox come on and do a reading one time, as long as we can make there's no kids in the room.
Yes.
So, all right. Thank you.
18 plus.
There you go. All right, with that, thank you very much, and this will close the Biomassed show.
And cut. And cut. And cut. And cut. And cut. And cut.